Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show. And in today's episode, man, it's a really serious one. And the topic is, should Doc Rivers be fired or lose his job after the Clippers meltdown that we just witnessed? So that's the topic today. So before I get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. If this is your first time to the Dreamerspro Show, it's basically we cover a lot of hot, sports topics, NBA news, and give you just our own take on sports and the way we see it. So if this is your first time, welcome to the channel, and let's get straight into the content. So today's a crazy day. All right, I'm a little bit heated from what I saw with the Clippers, because all of you know that they just had a all-time choke job against the Denver Nuggets last night, in which they choked away a 3-1 lead. Some people may say that the Denver Nuggets are that good. Well, if the Clippers are able to get up 3-1 and then lose it, you don't win 3-1. You don't win 3 games out of 4 against a team and be bad, right? I don't know how that happens unless that other team wasn't really that good to begin with. I don't think if you go to a game 7, it means both of those teams are pretty evenly matched, apparently. So they blew that lead. Okay, and I've spoken about Kawhi in other episodes today. I've spoken about Paul George, but today I want to focus on Doc Rivers. Okay, and we haven't really dedicated any content to Doc Rivers. And after we're done with this today, we're going to take a break from the Clippers, because the Clippers have really let us down. And quite frankly, they don't deserve to be spoken about that much, given the type of performance that they just put forward in the playoffs, and how I'm just utterly disgusted with Kawhi Leonard, who's my favorite basketball player in the world, but just went out there and just completely laid an egg. And looking at him last night, looking at his face, for the first time, I saw concern on Kawhi Leonard's face. For the first time, he looked concerned. Like, if you looked at his face, the guy looked worried. And my question is, where was all of this desperation 3 games ago? It didn't even need to get to this point where you're now out here fighting for your lives, and you go to a game 7, and we all know the cliche saying where anything can happen, and it did, and you lose. To me, it's unconscionable that something like that is incomprehensible for something like that to happen. But that's what did. That's what did happen. Now, let's talk about Doc Rivers. Okay, let's just get into Doc Rivers. Okay, all throughout the year, during the lockdown and all of this stuff, Clippers fans and others have been quite skeptical of Doc Rivers. I've come to the aid of Doc Rivers and Paul George, who I'm not going to get into in this video because he's not even worth talking about today. They've consistently and constantly questioned whether or not Doc Rivers is a good coach, right? And I said to myself, no, Doc can't be a bad coach. He's not a bad coach, right? He's a championship coach. And a lot of people were like, man, Doc is not the guy. And I was like, no, Doc is the guy. He's a championship coach. Jerry West is there. I'm sure Jerry West must have looked at him and said, hey, listen, it's a great coach you made as a consultant to the Clippers. And I'm sure Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, the richest owner in sports, worth, I think, over $60 billion at this point, former CEO of Microsoft Corporation, Incorporated, I believe. He must have thought the same thing. Steve Ballmer's not a basketball guy, so I'm sure he was leaning on the advice that he got from basketball people around him. And looking at him, if I was owning an NBA team, one of the first thoughts I would have in myself, if I had the bankroll to do it, I would want to get a championship coach to coach my team. You want to get the best people to do the job for you. So it's not Steve Ballmer's fault. Steve Ballmer's not a basketball guy, although he said he's been a lifelong basketball fan. So we look at Doc Rivers. Okay, let's just look at Doc Rivers. Let's just look at his playoff history. Okay. And I wasn't going to do this before, but now that it seems like Doc Rivers may be the issue, let's just look at it. Doc Rivers started his coaching career with the Orlando Magic in 1999. Okay? That's when he started his coaching career. First year, he went 500 and he missed the playoffs. Fine, I don't want to hold that against him. The second year, he lost in the first round. Third year, he lost in the first round. Fourth year, he lost in the first round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6th year, he got fired. Moved on to the Boston Celtics. lost in the first round, missed the playoffs, right? Granted, there are other things that go into it. He had Paul Pierce, but Paul Pierce didn't have much help. The first year he gets Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. He gets Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, Paul Pierce to win the championship. And they had some tough playoff run going 7 games against the Atlanta Hawks in the first round, but they won. The next year they lost in the conference finals, and then the following year they lost in the NBA finals. All right? And then they kept on losing in the conference finals, lost in the conference finals, lost in the first round finally. Then he moved on to the Los Angeles Clippers, who at the time I think was owned by, what's the former owner of the Los Angeles, forced to sell the team? I can't remember his name. If you guys remember his name, please leave us. He the one that had his recordings. That had his personal conversation recorded. I can't. Donald Sterling. Yes. So he went there, and they lost in the first round. Lost in the conference finals. And then 2 prior years, lost in the first round. Then in 2007, 2018, missed the playoffs. Then last year they lost in the first round, and then this year they lost in the conference semifinals. Okay, let's look at how many times Doc Rivers has lost in the conference semifinals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the last 10 years. In the last 10 or 12 years, 5 times. In the last 10 or 12 years, if I count them, 5 times. If you look at how many times he's lost in the first round in the last 5 or 10 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Right? Doc Rivers has not been to a finals in 12 seasons, 12 years. He's not even been to he's been to the conference finals 1 time since, or the NBA finals twice in that period. And if you look at what happened with the Clippers throughout these playoffs, and you look at the decisions that were being made, especially in Game 7 last night, with Lou Williams on the floor, I have to ask myself, why did Doc Rivers keep Lou Williams in a game when he kept on missing so many shots, and he was a defensive liability? You can say, well, why did he keep Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in the game? Number one, these are your best players. And number 2, they're not a liability on defense. So at least you can make an argument for that. But why was Lou Williams in that game? Why didn't they put in Reggie Jackson? Montrezl Harrell couldn't do anything. Anything. He couldn't do anything with Nikola Jokic. And then Zubac kept on getting in foul trouble. What was the reason of picking up Joakim Noah, who was, I think, a former Defensive Player of the Year? What was the reason for that? And not have him play. Nothing was working. Nothing. If you bring in Joakim Noah to play, what are you losing? Right? You don't lose anything by having him in the game. And the fact that the Clippers blew a 3-1 lead, some of that blame needs to go to Doc Rivers. Why? Because you're the head coach. How can't you get these guys in a mental space to perform? How? Last night, you started coaching with some desperation in that first quarter, I see, but you can't be lackadaisical about it. Look at Nick Nurse. Look at Doc Rivers. Look at their coaching styles. Look at Nick Nurse is always on the move. He's always into it. Always engaged. Doc Rivers just, I think, like the Clippers had the attitude, we're supposed to win. It'll be fine. It's okay. And for them to lay this egg, listen, I think they need to look for a different coach, man. Something needs to change. And it's not just about them not having chemistry. Something needs to change. They need to get a different coach. They need to probably get a disciplinarian, get Mark Jackson, get somebody that will knock these guys on the head and say, wake up. You guys haven't won anything, with the exception of Kawhi. You guys haven't won anything, but y'all walking around feeling like y'all have. And they need to think about going in a different direction. I mean, the guy's been there for the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. 7 years. So I think they need to look at a different coach. I don't know who that coach is going to be, but they need to go in a different, something has to change with this team. it's not like with Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, he loses you see Phil Jackson sitting down. Excuse me, the guy has 11 championship rings. If Phil Jackson wants to bring a bed on the court on the side and lay down while he coaches the game, nobody's gonna say a damn thing about Phil Jackson when you have 11 championship rings. No one. But none of these guys are even in that stratosphere. So for me, something needs to be done with Doc Rivers. And the question is simple. Do you think he should lose his job after this choke job that the Clippers put forward last night? So that's what I want to know from you guys. So please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I'm not going to be talking about the Clippers again for a while because there's nothing else to say, really. We're going to be talking about other things because I'm tired. I'm tired of Kawhi, what he did. Tired of what these Clippers did, man. They don't deserve the press right now. So please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro. Wishing you guys an amazing day.